Hey, all. I'm Cullen Haynes, and welcome to Law Live, second episode of the day. Recently interviewed Marnie Cooper, mediator, on a mission, and now I'm very glad and proud to introduce Mei Gong from JWS, who is a 30 under 30 winner and encourages many lawyers out there to put themselves out there. And we'll also be talking about well-being in the workplace as well, and balancing lawyer life with wellness as well. And 4 years in law and going strong. Could you please make very welcome Miss Mei Gong? How are you, Mei?
I'm very well. And you, Cullen?
I'm always well, especially when we're talking about all things, awards, wellness, lawyering. And I know you're very prolific, obviously, on the socials. There was an article recently in the Lawyers Weekly that came out. So I'm sure this is a very timely conversation indeed.
Well,
Very
it's
good.
definitely
So,
been a
yeah,
train of coincidences.
I love that. A train of coincidences. I like, very nicely put. Very nicely put. But starting off there, May, what is happening in your world right now?
Well, I think before I start, I would just clarify that all answers are my own and not reflective of my employer. Um, Legally, I think in my world, there's a few developments that are quite exciting. We're seeing the regulator taking a lot of action on greenwashing when you make environmental sustainability claims, whether you're overstating what you promised to do. We see unfair contractions coming in a month's time, and there's currently broader consultation on unfair trading practices. On a personal level, I'm currently renovating a house that I recently bought, and a bit over my head. I now realize that why the vlog, when I watch it, looks so hectic. It is not easy by all means, and starting to run again. I injured my knee a couple of months ago, so just starting to get back into it. And recently developed an interest in playing basketball, and just been playing with my firm in a lunchtime corporate competition.
Very well, very busy as well. And if anyone looks on your LinkedIn, you're always doing something. I love what you've got on your LinkedIn because you've got all the quotes that you're known for, which I think is absolutely fantastic. One of my favorites of yours is education is the most important weapon you can use to change the world. And then you got Frank Sinatra, take a deep breath, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. So you really put yourself out there, and you're a fellow runner. So I'm even more endeared by your good self there, May.
Oh, that's very kind. I can't take credit about the education quote. That was Nelson Mandela. But certainly, education and embracing failures has been a big two core themes of my life.
Well said. Well said. And I guess moving on to education and the parallel to that, advocacy in what you do as a lawyer. How important is advocacy in what you do daily?
I think it's incredibly important. My work traverses litigious transactional advisory matters, and in whichever context we do, we're always trying to persuade someone or another party, and we're always trying to make sure that our clients' interests are best advanced or best protected. And the lawyering profession itself is a profession where persuasion, navigating ambiguity is inherent. And in order to urge, verge on one side or the other, you definitely need a degree of advocacy. But I think more broadly, I would like to apply the concept of advocacy to um, career as well. I'm very much an advocate that we should all be our own career advocates. Like if we want opportunity or if we want to develop in a particular way, then I'm very much for the fact that we need to take accountability and have those important conversations with our senior lawyers who may never realize that that's what we had in mind. And so they can't really guide us to where we want to go. So I think advocacy is both important professionally in the line of work we do, but also personally in maximizing the career that we can have.
Good points. Good points there. And obviously, it shines through with what you're doing all the time because you recently won and took out 30 under 30. I'd love to dive in more into that. How does that feel?
Well, I think I recently shared this on the Lawyers Weekly podcast as well. So it felt very gratifying. So the backstory to it is I wanted to apply for a few years and actually applied 2 years back and was a finalist. I actually didn't intend to apply this year because I wasn't actually too confident that what I achieved in 2022 was good enough to win the award. But one of my career supporters very much said, May, believe in your, like, I believe in you, so I'm going to nominate you. And I thought that the least I could do is to thank her, is to make a full submission, and I guess the rest is history. So it was very unexpected. I didn't prepare a speech, and I was really happy because it was a goal that I had thought about for a couple of years, but I just wasn't sure whether I could get there. And I guess this year it was probably a combination of timing and luck as well. So very grateful for all the people that have helped me and mentored me to get to where I am. I don't think it changes who I am as a lawyer. I think I'm very much the same. I'm still passionate about supporting junior lawyers. I still have the same philosophy that I want to be the best lawyer that I can be, but it's almost like baking a cake. It's like the icing on the cake, but it doesn't change the underlying cake.
Doesn't change the actual cake. Very well said. And I would encourage people. It is now 4:40 in Sydney, Australian Eastern Standard Time. We're broadcasting live, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. If you have any questions or want to put it to May, please do so. Michael Campbell, leading valuer over there in Melbourne at the moment. Go the under 30s. Well done there, May. What's your take? I'd like to ask you, what's your take on the concept of happy, high performing lawyers? And is it realistic or possible?
So I will recommend that for those who are listening to actually check out a lecture paper by High Court Justice Jane Jaggett recently. Um, Justice Jaggett spoke in August at a mental health lecture, and the paper really talks about the structural and other challenges that junior lawyers face in seeking to lead a successful career in a very
Yes.
stressful environment, particularly in private law firms. There's the high billable hour targets, the hierarchical structures, and so forth. And I think in general it is quite difficult because as junior lawyers, we often don't have too much autonomy over our work. It's very much whatever work gets handed down by senior lawyers that constitutes our day. But I think as we accumulate more experience in the legal profession and we get a bit more competence in and legal expertise in what we do, it does get a bit easier because people increasingly trust that we know what we're doing and we can better plan our days accordingly. I do have, I think, 3 tips for people who are looking to be a happier, high performing lawyer that they could consider. One is, I think it's important to take time to reflect on whether you are happy, and if not, why you are not as fulfilled or why you may not be working as optimally as you can. You know, whether that's an issue that's structurally, whether it's something you could change in your daily life. It is important to have clarity on those factors that enable you to be your best self at work. And I think, secondly, once you do identify the factors that you can and can't control, you can then modify your life or your approach so that you can actually manage well. If it's a factor I can control, for example, you may realize you work better in the mornings compared to night. So you might concentrate
Good point.
on doing the mentally complex work in the morning whenever you can, then leave it at night, or you may choose to wake up much earlier rather than stay late to do the work to make sure you have the same high quality output provided it's still done on time. And I think it's also facilitating conversation. We can be we can find a bit daunting to approach senior lawyers who often seem incredibly time poor to have a chat. But depending on your relationship with them, it may be that you just schedule in a 10-minute chat into their calendar, and once it's in their calendar, it's easier to manage as well. When you have those ongoing conversations about, is there anything I can do better to make your day easier? Is there something in my schedule that I really want to do, and how can I best fit it with whatever work is going on as well? I think often junior lawyers avoid having a conversation entirely because they think it's too hard and they actually overthink it themselves. But if they do have those conversations, it can lead to a much happier, fulfilling way to practice law in the long term.
Well said. Well said. And on that note of putting yourself out there as a junior lawyer, or those early in the profession, it maybe leads into also the awards as well. You're an advocate in the recent Lawyers Weekly article of maybe putting yourself up for those awards, maybe not listening to that small. It's like, I think it's an Australian thing, the tall poppy syndrome. Everyone doesn't feel like they want to put themselves on a pedestal because it's not right to blow your own trumpet. Would love to know your thoughts on that chestnut there, May.
I definitely had that anxiety. And it came from a different source. So there is that Asian wisdom of like, stay humble, don't put your head down, don't attract envy. And I think that needs to be balanced with the fact that if you don't articulate what you've done, you can't expect other people to know, particularly if you've done a variety of both technical and also extracurricular work. Unless you really articulate it yourself and back yourself up, no one will necessarily know the totality of what you've contributed or achieved. And so, whilst it's great when we find mentors and sponsors to lift ourselves up, I think ultimately it is within our control. It's the only thing within our control to back ourselves up, because if we don't back ourselves up, then who will? And we need to be our biggest believer. It's almost like pitching. If you have a startup and you want to pitch to other investors, if you don't believe in a startup yourself, then how can you get other people to invest as well? So whilst there might be that anxiety of, are you putting, yourself out there too much? At the end of the day, it's based on objective things. Like you've achieved these things. These are like factual reality, and you're building it as part of your resume or gaining profile for what you've done. You're not overstating. As long as you're not overstating your achievements, I think there's no issue with putting yourself forward for opportunities and recognition.
Well said. And more advice for young lawyers looking to strive towards that well-being state we were talking about. Is there anything you want to add on that?
I would add that if you can, find an interest or another hobby outside of law. I found
Hmm.
personally that in the first few years, because I was so focused on building my career, work basically is assumed my life. And if you don't find a hobby or other interests outside of work sooner rather than later, you might find yourself just working constantly because you actually have nothing that you particularly want to do or like to do outside of work. And sometimes that's fine as well. Like some people really enjoy work and actually love that balance, but most people actually don't. And so if you fall into that camp, make the time, this try out different things, whether it's running, going to a gym, or try out some creative endeavor. Because if you build that space for yourself and for your hobby consistently, you can actually be a better lawyer, because having a refreshed mind makes you see new things in your legal practice, and likewise having the opportunity to disconnect just makes you a happier person overall.
I'm endeared by what you're saying there, May, and I think everyone tuning in can get some gems of wisdom from that. I heard somewhere, I think it was my mentor, there's no such thing as work-life balance, but more work-life quality. And sometimes work demands that you may need to stay back a little bit extra to get a project done. But obviously, if you can make up that time with those personal endeavors elsewhere, I think, you're feeding that soul. And it can't be all skewed in one way. It has to be that quality time, if that makes sense. But and you can be as honest as you want in this next question, May. What would you like to see change in law or the legal profession?
I have many goals in mind. I think one thing I would like to see change is perhaps more support for lawyers as they climb through the ranks in terms of providing these lawyers with coaching or leadership training. That's not to say that senior lawyers are already very good leaders, but I think in other industries, it's actually quite common for senior leaders to get executive coaching. I think that concept is less common in law, and we could all do with. I'm always an advocate for more training, more support as we build our career as lawyers, as leaders. I think the other change I would love to see more is more of like a greater recognition of the contributions that junior lawyers make. They often do a lot of the grunt work, and they also do a lot of non-billable but very valuable work. And if those could be recognized continually in some way, and they may well already be, but perhaps particularly in smaller firms as well, sometimes that can be forgotten that, these lawyers are still in their budding stages of their career and actually contributing a lot and trying very hard. So a little bit of recognition goes a long way, but that's ultimately up to individual employers as well. But it doesn't take much. I think, a thank you or a praise or a nomination, but it can make a profound difference to our well-being and our fulfillment at work.
100%. And maybe even shouting out your colleagues or direct reports in meetings, emails, like it does go a long way as well. Any, I guess, suppliers or people that you're working with. I often do that with the banks that we're working with if they pull out all the stops. I did one today for a banker at one of the big four who turned around an application within 24 hours, got the docs out, signed, settled the same day. We always hear about the deal that goes wrong, and there's always email chains with that. But, how often do people take the time to actually praise someone and shout out someone to say, hey, just wanted to let you know that, Mary did a great job. And I just wanted to put that out there. So, yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down there, May. The other thing that you said that I really resonate with, which we do here at LHL, is, investing in staff in education. I told you that I was at a leadership and management training at the University of Sydney yesterday, and that was fantastic. And one tidbit that I learned, because I'm a very positive person and I don't really call people out much, but he gave me this great piece of wisdom for anyone who wants to try and curb or redirect behavior. And a good example is people being late for meetings or Zoom meetings. What you do is you say this. You say, John, I noticed that you were late for the meeting. In my interpretation, it seems that when you're late, you may not be committed to this project. Is that correct, John? And usually the person says, well, no, it's not correct. Oh, okay. So next time this happens, would it be okay if I just check with you that this is not the case, just for my own benefit? Would that be okay, John? And like doing it that way really spooks people, because it's like, why is this person talking to me like this? And the behavior goes away. So I can really attest to the education element. That's something I've never done before or learned. I can't wait to apply it. Hopefully I don't have to, May, but yeah, it was good training nonetheless. But if we move on to the passion projects you're working on now, what are you working on, if you can share them freely?
Wow, I've already shared it. I'm renovating a house, and that's consuming a lot of my
That's a
free
passion
time.
project enough. My goodness.
So I don't know. At this point in time, I probably don't have space for another one. But if I do, I'll let you know.
Please do. Please do. And we can't wait to see the photos. And last but certainly not least, to kind of close the official part of the stream, when all is said and done, May, how would you like to be remembered?
So I think ultimately how one gets remembered is actually dependent on the thoughts of others. Like I might have like this is how I want to be remembered, but other people might have a completely different view. So I think all I can do is work as hard as I can, hope that at the end of the day people might think something close to this, but they might not. And and at the very least, I just hope to have made a positive impact. You know, one of the my biggest passion is supporting junior lawyers to become their best selves. And if at the end of the day, you know, a junior lawyer, ex-junior lawyer, has been positively impacted by an insight that I've shared or a conversation that I've had, and if it some way has helped them to see the light within themselves and enable them to play a small part, enable them to blossom to their full potential, then I couldn't really ask for anything more. But again, it's you can only try your best, but you can't really control how you actually get remembered.
I think that's FDR. Once you've given it your best shot, to heck with it. And you're certainly doing that right now, there, May. You're an inspiration. Thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find you? Where are you hanging out the most these days?
Well, I'm hanging out a lot on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect or follow. I do also have a personal website, meigong.au, where I have curated the best of my junior lawyer insights. So feel free to check me out on there as well.
Meigong.au. You heard it here first. Get on there, follow on LinkedIn. And thank you so much, May, for being part of Law Live.
And thank you so much, Colin, for the invitation. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, always. And we'll bring you back for some bonus questions very soon. And if you are a legend of law or know someone who is like to be on the show, we come out every Wednesday. So make sure to bring yourself or them along. Let me know. And we'll stream this and rip it live to wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, or otherwise. Bye for now, everyone. Take care. Bringing you back, May. If you could describe your role in law to a 6-year-old, how would you do that?
So I actually Googled for ideas, but I didn't. It didn't really help. And I thought perhaps a sporting analogy might help. I if there was a 6-year-old and they asked me what I do, I would say that I'm almost like a coach for a sporting team, which is my client. I basically want to make sure that my client is following the rules of the game, and you know they can win as long as like they're training hard or they have some creative strategy, something that is a legitimate business strategy, but we don't want them, you know, to cheat. We basically want all the teams to compete fairly on a level playing field, and that's kind of how I want to explain it to them. And also the work we do, you can see it on ads and on shelves in supermarkets and pharmacies. So I do have that extra advantage in that we are all consumers in our own everyday lives. And so whenever we do review advertising campaigns, promotions, we can literally point to that thing in our everyday lives. So that's my best go at it.
Well done. Admirable attempt. And I'd say you knocked it out of the park myself. And last question to end everything, a fun, less known fact about you that not many people know about yourself.
So a few years ago, I wanted to explore this concept of like, I heard about this concept of anyone can be an expert if you spend 10,000 hours at doing that thing. Now, I don't necessarily have 10,000 hours to spare to just explore an interesting hobby, but what I wanted to explore was, well, if I dedicate a lot of time into something in a very short amount of time, does that mean that I will get much better at that thing? Or is it that because I don't have talent on that thing, it doesn't really matter that much? And so over a 2-week period, I decided to try this theory out on baking. So I bought all the tools like the mixer, the molds, the ingredients. I found recipes for 10 different cakes and tarts. And what I essentially did was bake a cake or tart almost every day or every second day in the middle of the night. Now, my parents wasn't too pleased with the noise I was making in the kitchen, and my biggest problem was actually finding people to eat the cakes and tarts because I was looking to cook, but I wasn't necessarily looking to eat that much food. But it proved to be correct. It proved to be the fact that if you keep repeating and keep doing something with a very short amount of time and you dedicate a lot of hours to it, you end up with a much better cake on tart. But the reverse is also true. If you stop baking for a very long period of time, you will end up losing a lot of that knowledge or expertise. So I've certainly gleaned from that experience that effort surpasses talent.
Oh, well said. And I think Malcolm Gladwell talks about that. Robert Greene talks about that. The 10,000 hours. You're making me hungry now. Please bring them in next time we chat. I'm sure everyone at JWS appreciates your cake baking skills now as well.
I'm not sure about that. One step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I think that's an amazing insight to leave everyone on and ponder. 10,000 hours to mastery. Practice makes permanent, not perfect, because you could be practicing the wrong way. And if you don't use it, you may lose it. Well said, May. And thank you so much again for being part of Law Live. It's been fantastic.
Thanks so much, Helen.
All the best, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Take care.